My dear daughter, today's topic is work, ways of working, and as I sit here on the 17th of January 2023, the future of work and what it might mean for you. You're about a decade or so, maybe a decade and a half away from really entering the workforce, and I can't even imagine what that future of work will look like for you. So maybe I'll start with something of a recounting of what it was like for me for the last 30 odd years since I've been at work. I've been working since I was about 15. Um, but I guess I'll focus mainly on, the office based professional career that I had in engineering and consulting. Um, and I remember waking up at like 5:30 because you've got to get dressed, wash, dressed, have breakfast, hopefully get there early enough to the train station car park to find somewhere to park and pay a ridiculous amount of money to park a car, and then pay a ridiculous amount of money to stand packed like sardines on the train to London, and then even worse, queue for the underground where you could be even more packed as you get shuttled to whatever central London location is. Um, and by the time you got there, it was sort of 8:30, and you were covered in the grime of travel and the grime of having that many human beings pressed that close to you. And some, if I'm honest with you, whose ablution discipline was apparently a bath in links, which was always weird. Um, and it's 8:30, and I'm at the office, and I'm already tired. I'm already tired. It's meant, it's not really the work day hasn't really started, and I'm already tired. And if I was really unlucky during that commute, I would have had to answer some emails or pick up some emails from the night before. 24/7 global company, that kind of thing. Um, and it was awful. It was absolutely awful. Obviously, with the scamdemic, everyone went to working from home. But I was lucky that for about 5 years before, I had already been working from home or working remotely, predominantly coming into the office a couple of days a week for face-to-face water cooler conversations, the humanity of work, as it were. Um, and it was amazing to suddenly find that people were realizing that actually um, adults don't actually need to be brought into an office and overseen in order to crack on with work. That we can actually organize ourselves. If you give us outcomes to achieve, then we can absolutely achieve those outcomes if you let us. And I'm kind of hoping that your future is all about outcomes and not work. This whole concept, I think, developed from, when people went down the pits to mine or the factories or whatever. And it's like, clock in and clock out and be overseen and middle managers and so on and so forth. You must, do this, but don't worry about the big picture. Just do this and it will allow you to do all the other pieces. Other people are doing their little bits and pieces, and someone will magically make it all happen in the end. Um, and that was a real BS way of doing things, if I'm honest with you. Especially in engineering, it was horrible. Um, and it turned out that actually, if you focus people on outcomes and said, listen, this is what the product is, the service is, what your team, what our company is trying to achieve, not the, you know, 60,000 level kind of, we want to work together to create something great or anything, but actually real things that you as a team, as an individual, could identify with, then we'd self-organize and self-govern. Um, and actually, what the 2 years or whatever of COVID-19 proved was there were lots of people, middle management, who weren't really doing very much. That was important in creating that outcome. They were certainly doing stuff that was important in creating the outcome in that way, in a certain manner that was ancient, but it didn't. It was much better actually to rethink the process of creation, of delivering a service, and in my world, consulting, and say, well, how do we do this better, right? If we could start with everything we know today, what would we do? And I think that's a really key message of, um, the next decade and a half until you get to work. Um, the world will move at a rapid pace, and I'm sure it will keep moving at a rapid pace when you're an adult. But and so it becomes really important to almost every year to turn around and say, okay, we've learned a lot. Given everything we learned, how can we achieve the same outcome? Is there a better way? And be honest about that, and engage with that process and make things better. Hopefully, you will never. I really do hope you never end up in an office doing an office job. It's dreadful. It there was a TV program. I think it was on Netflix recently. Well, okay, it's not recently. A few years ago, and there's a great line in it saying, "Look at those people out there. All of them used to be children once." And I would like to think that you would remember that. That remember that you were a child and that you loved doing stuff and you enjoyed yourself in doing that stuff, and you were curious and inquisitive and inspired. And if you ever find yourself not being that as an adult, it's time to change. It's time to leave. It's time to move on. Um, and so it's weird because we recently, and this might actually gauge when I made this, we had a conversation and you were like, I want to make sure that I do stuff that's really enjoyable. And that is, and like everyone begins like that. But then life gets in the way and you've got bills to pay and a mortgage to pay and kids to send to school and blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden you're like, well, I hate what I do, but I got to earn the money. And if you find yourself in that situation, work with your husband to work out what you do next. Because if you're in that situation, there's a good chance that your husband is too. And you both may want to sit down and look at how you actually change what you do, change your circumstances to give yourselves a joy back in what you do. Like, we spend so much time at work, minimum 8 hours, right? As a consultant, I can tell you that's not that's not you can't really just work for 8 hours a day. Sometimes, and there are crunch times, right? There are times of when it's quite quiet and you work. There's not a lot to do, but to what we used to call ideation and creating points of view. But actually, there are times when it's a real crunch time. You're doing 12, 20-hour days, but it's only for a short amount of time, and it's to get you through something. And it's not good. And so you should always try and make sure that you don't get in that situation. But it does happen. It did happen sometimes. I don't know what you'll be doing. But make sure that you still enjoy what you do every day. And if you ever find yourself in that kind of dead end situation, it's time to move. Hopefully, in your future, careers will be interchangeable. That actually humanity will have realized and come to accept that, regardless of your career, you've got something to add to another career, to another outcome, another stream of work or stream of activity that's generating another outcome, and that you should be able to move to those kind of outcomes. And it's a very strange thing. Like, I'm at the moment, I'm about to hit 46, and I do enjoy what I do. I've always enjoyed technology and I've always enjoyed computers. I'm kind of disappointed that I'm no longer, able to cut code every day. But at the same time, I work with teams who are looking to benefit from all the lessons that I've learned, and that's really useful, and it's enjoyable to teach. It's enjoyable to share and to lead. I try not to manage, though apparently I'm meant to manage, but actually I try not to manage. The best way to manage a team is to hire adults, set them a goal, give them the resources, and let them have at it. That's the best management I've found. Obviously, there are things that happen that you have to step into. Right now, the way that human resourcing is set up and corporate structure is set up, sometimes you do have to step up and be the accountable person. And it'd be interesting to see how that evolves and develops. But don't ever get told that you have to go into a certain location to be productive. That's not right. You're not unless you end up being a factory worker or a miner, which by the time you get to adulthood, I expect all of those things most of the time will be automated away to machines and robots. So you won't even have the opportunity to do that. But I think it's important for you to always remember that to find a place and a space that you're able to do your work. Understand how other people in your teams work. Make sure you work out how to work together remotely. And it isn't about being in the same country, right? The world is more and more becoming interconnected, um, and not just in the technological sense, but in the philosophical and the psychological sense. So hopefully, in a decade and a half, when you're working, we'll have new ways of people being able to achieve outcomes, but work collaboratively over multiple time zones and really different time zones. Midnight is midday, that kind of thing. So that's I'm looking forward to seeing. Hopefully I'll still be around, but I'm looking forward to seeing how that evolves. But in the past, when I was, as I am today, and the journey I've taken, it's been a struggle. Um, Work hasn't always been the greatest of experiences, and a lot of the time it's been about just earning money because you've got to pay rent and put food on the table and send you to school. Um, but it's okay. It's meant sometimes some things are meant to be hard. That's also the job of an adult. And when you become a parent, that's also the job is do the hard thing and do the thing that might or not always be what you want to do, but you have to do, and that's okay. But it's not okay to build your life around that. Um, Work should definitely be something that enables you to enjoy life, experience the world, think about the universe, and explore. It shouldn't be a means to its end. Over the last 20 years, I think there's been a growing sense of people wondering why we sacrifice so much of our lives to make a very small amount of people very rich, shareholders and so on, where and there's an economic point there is that we've developed an economic system that doesn't value work or effort, but it values capital. And that's a really big problem that we have to solve, and hopefully we'll have solved it by the time you're an adult, because it's incredibly damaging. It's incredibly damaging to just humanity, but also, it causes wars. So we should probably fix that. So I hope this has given a brief kind of introduction into where this all came from and the kind of things I'm hoping for you and the kind of problems that we face as like humanity itself starts to understand the difference between worth and value, and that they're not synonyms, and that they don't necessarily lead one to the other or the other to the one, and that's important to understand. And hopefully, when you're an adult, we'd have helped everybody work that out together, and that we'd have come to a general consensus, and that you will hopefully go into an adult environment where you're able to help create outcomes from wherever you are, but to prioritize your life rather than your work, um, and that will make you a happier person, give you a happier life, and hopefully allow your children, my grandkids, to stand on your shoulders as you stand on mine and see farther and reach further. Anyway, I'll see you again next time.